All right, welcome everybody. It seems entirely ridiculous for all of us up here that in this size group we should use a microphone. But for those of you who are listening after the session, you'll be glad that we did. They record this for people to pick up online, and so we will continue to hold and be microphone specific here. Thank you for attending this session. It seems that a percentage of the population has prescribed or subscribed to the adage which says if you don't build it here, it's not worth anything. Has anyone heard that before? And I'm not so sure that that attitude is very defendable anymore. And so with a lot of the pressures in our marketplace and on our industry to deliver and improved products and services faster than ever, so that the future of the kids who are using the products that we bring are useful to them, the stakes are high, and organizations are trying to decide if they're going to build versus buy, and that's the nature of our Titanic discussion, which is going to take place today. We appreciate the foresight and wisdom of SIA for allowing the four of us to address that, and we've already decided that there might be some good laughs in the midst of this discussion. It is after all an age-old question, but I think that sometimes the market pressures that exist in and within us, our market and around our organizations, have us answering that question differently. Specifically, you chose to be in this room, and we're grateful for that. The session says we're going to address this. It says, what is the fastest path to growth? To acquire external competencies, technologies, products, and capabilities, or to build them yourself, or something in between. We're going to be looking at what's best for you and how you might know. We're going to be looking at what strategies you currently deploy and might be wondering about within your own organizations. We're looking at variables that ought to be considered in the midst of these decisions. So SIA has assembled this all-star panel of individuals and asked me to keep them orderly. They...
Did you say who you were?
No, not yet. That's the whole idea. I am a no-name compared to you. So let me give you this august group. Starting in the middle is young Midian Kurland. Midian is a 30-year veteran.
It feels like
of the ed tech industry. He's currently Senior Vice President, Technology Integration, or recently changed title, but something fancy. I can actually move this slide so you all can see that. He works at Scholastic, where he manages various cross-divisional initiatives. Previous to his arrival at Scholastic, he managed the engineering and hosting service departments for... I take that all back. He manages all the engineering and hosting service departments for Scholastic's technology-based web and enterprise curriculum products, correct?
Yeah.
Including the great and mighty Read 180, Math 180, and Scholastic's assessment line. Before all this, he had a great career doing research, including the Center of Study for the Study of Reading at the University of Illinois and the Center for Children and Technology at Bank Street College. Later, before he arrived at Scholastic in 2002, he held senior management positions at EDC, the Advanced Technology Group at Apple. That must have been fun.
Worst 2 years of my life.
Worst 2 years of his life. Curriculum.
Not for too fun at PointCounterpoint.
Yeah.
Not for too.
CCC, and he also was involved in several internet startups. So welcome to the panel, Midian. He comes well prepared to talk about these issues from all different angles. Also joining us is Joyce Whitby. Joyce is senior level executive with also nearly 30 years of experience in the educational technology market. Over the years, she's worked for organizations like Apple, Compass Learning, Scientific Learning, and she has been an active member of SIA for 10 plus years. She's currently the National VP of Sales and Marketing for Monarch Teaching Technologies, also known as MTT. And they're the makers of Vizzle. Love it. It's a visual learning for autism and special needs kids. While they consider themselves a small startup type company, they've been around for some time.
About 2009.
Yeah, and they're doing some very innovative things. So welcome to the panel. I believe that she thinks that she's on this panel to give the little guy perspective.
David.
Huh?
David.
That's it. David, the David, not the Goliath. So speaking of Goliaths, I'll introduce now Chris Willig. She has, believe it or not, the bio says, about 30 years of experience. So I'm feeling like such a neophyte. About 30 years of educational focus, leadership, management, product development, sales, and marketing experience, all in education. Oh, thank you for helping me with that. Very good. Since 2012, she is leading all product development and managing the portfolio for pre-K-12 curriculum and instructional materials in all disciplines for all of McGraw-Hill education. Big job. And prior to joining McGraw-Hill in 2011, she was the president and chief executive officer of Math Solutions. You guys know them from the West Coast. And she successfully orchestrated an acquisition with that organization to Midian's group, Scholastic. And prior to that, I was fortunate enough to be able to spend a lot of time with Chris at Synchronize, NetTracker, now Knovation. And we worked together and traveled together and did a lot of great things together on digital content. So she is family. And before that, where we picked her up, she was with Thompson Learning, now Cengage. So that is our panel. I am moderating this. I am Randy Wilhelm. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Knovation, as previously described, once called Synchronize and NetTracker, same company, same people, different names. And I don't have 30 years experience in this space. I've got about 15. So I'm about half as valuable as your comments that you all will have. And we started up in 99 with the idea that digital content ought to make a difference to kids and help them learn. And we've been focused on content curation and contextualization since then. And we display a lot of that curated content through our applications of NetTracker and Icurio. So the format of our panel today is to, and I apologize for long introductions, but part of that is to keep them from doing that when they talk. And so what our format is going to be very briefly is each is going to give sort of a briefing from their company's perspective of build versus buy. We want this time together to be very interactive, and so to help facilitate that, I have put at the bottom, if that was paginated properly for all your editor types, it'd be easier to read, but my phone number is sitting at the bottom, and I'm asking that you might text me your questions, and I'm going to ask them of the panel. So if you have questions that, okay, the HMH people are like, oh, this is going to be good. So I think that what I'd like to do is for you to text me your questions if you could, because I'll be trying to manage this unruly group up here. A simple one-sentence question would be best. We'll sort through some of those, and we'll get into the discussion about build versus buy. Does that make sense? And if you don't step up with some questions, then I have some that we can use. So let us start right here with Chris. If you can give us a little bit of idea with the microphone so others can hear, share a little bit about build versus buy question inside McGraw-Hill and how some of those decisions are manifesting themselves and how that maybe have changed over time.
I think that there's a third word that belongs in there, build, buy, or partner. And I'm sure all three of us, that occurred to us as we read the description of the session, because all three of those options have merit. I think sometimes when we confront something like a really exciting startup or a really innovative approach to our educational marketplace, that we kind of misconstrue that question about build, buy, or partner. The first question I have to ask myself, based on my years of experience, is the foundational context of the organization in which I work and in which I'm serving at the time. What do I mean by that? Randy didn't mention, but in my bio it says I'm a mother of 7 children. And I am. Blended family, 4 + 3 = 7. I only gave birth to 3. All right. But if from a foundational context as a mother, as I looked at an educational solution, that solution is all about being the best, having a lot of efficacy, and probably in my income bracket, price doesn't matter. So as I think about build, partner, build, partner, or buy, it's going to have that context. If I'm Amazon, which if you read anything about Amazon right now in the market, they don't care if they make any profit. That's a foundational context that impacts build, partner, or buy significantly. Now, if I'm a subject matter expert founder, which many of you might be in this room, and I worked for one who was a very successful one, there were definitely foundational constraints about what kind of partnerships or buy opportunities might exist there. Karen Coe's here in the room. She knows what I'm talking about, right? Subject matter founder experts and what that can do to constrain your business. But if you are the owner of one of those businesses, well, recognize that that's the universe in which you live. And if you try to bring in a partner or buy something that doesn't fit that construct, like that SME owner, it typically has to be an element of perfection because their name is on that door. They feel so much pride in it. So my last construct, though, is the one I'm living right now. In March, McGraw-Hill was purchased by the Apollo Group, the same group that bought Twinkies. Ain't it great?
It's sweet.
I love my business. It's sweet.
Yeah.
I just said sweet.
That's bad.
It's
Well, last
okay. Has everybody got it on their system?
No, I got 4 more. Carry on.
Apollo specializes in acquiring distressed assets. They're really, really good at it. Distressed assets that have a strong brand. Andrew's in the front row here just smiling. Anyway, that's the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt guy in the front row, who should be at this microphone too.
We can add a spot.
So there are drivers for Apollo. And those drivers are obviously impacting the senior team at McGraw-Hill. And I could go, and in the context of the rest of this conversation, I'll drill in deeper about some of the profiling and how we look at businesses that want to be a part of our family. I'm not going to belabor that because Midian needs something to say.
I'm just about out of here. No.
Joyce's turn.
But obviously for us, EBITDA and cash flow is huge. We're working now for a private equity firm. Some of those elements were not the same when we were owned by the folks that live in this building. By the way, this building does not belong to McGraw-Hill Education. It belongs to McGraw-Hill Financial. And our building is down by Madison Square Garden and in Columbus, Ohio, where I happen to live. So every decision that we make at McGraw-Hill has more, most of you think it's all about modeling and spreadsheets. We do a lot of modeling and spreadsheets, right? But that's only one variable. If we don't understand that foundational need of the business and what's the driver for that business and how you, if you're a smaller entrepreneur looking at how you play or partner with the Goliath in the room, then there's going to be a disconnect. And even if you go through a transaction, it will probably be doomed to failure unless we know that marriage of that foundation is right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way we like to look at it. That's the way certainly I like to look at it. And I pass to my esteemed colleague, which one?
Go on down the line. Midian's turn.
So first, Chris, you have to talk to me afterwards about this partnership thing. Sounds intriguing. I'd like to know more about that. I feel like I'm presenting in North Korea with. I'd be very careful what I say with certain members of the audience tracking. And you're saying this is being recorded.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know.
So anyway, over to you. There's so much we could say about this, and as you said, Randy, how has this changed over time? And there's lots of people in this room, we could just do a whole sort of encounter around Scholastic and our various build-buy excursions through the industry over the years. And maybe we will have Andrew come up here since he ran the buy side of the house for a number of years at Scholastic, or a period of time. The only thing I just want to throw out there, and then we can circle on to some of the other questions, is I know we're sort of focused, I think, on talking about the buy being companies, but we get a lot of opportunities to look at groups coming in, and we're always looking at them and saying, gee, is there an opportunity here to acquire a product, a technology, a group of people, or a sales channel? And if you can say yes to all four of those things, it's a much more interesting conversation than one or the other. But as a company like Scholastic, where we think of ourselves as very solution-oriented on the education side, we're not a book bag of discrete products that are sold as onesies or don't need to coexist with everything else in the book bags, but have to be tightly integrated. It raises the bar a lot on what's possible to buy, whether it's a technology or a whole product. The other factor that comes in a lot in what we're looking at is there's a lot of cool stuff out there, but there are a lot of hidden costs when it comes to buying, in terms of the integration overhead and the total cost of ownership, the long-term maintenance. A good example would be a few years back when we were looking at speech recognition as something we wanted to potentially build into products like Read 180. And was that something we wanted to build internally, even though we had no real expertise in speech recognition, or buy? And in that particular case, it turns out it was really easy, because you just grab the Sphinx engine from Carnegie Mellon, that's free. Hire 2 PhD speech modelers, a couple speech engineers, and a small QA team. And for the mere price of 7 or 8 very expensive people, you can add this feature to your product and keep them around year after year after year. Needless to say, there is no speech recognition in Read 180. It's the number of factors for an established company like Scholastic, with as tightly integrated a portfolio as we have, leads us to, more often than not, like 99.9% of the time, err on the side of build rather than buy, because the full cost, the true cost of an acquisition, particularly if there's uncomfortable overlap, either in the skill set of or the territories of the sales folks, or the company's got 4 products, 3 of which we kind of want, but the 4th completely overlaps with Read 180. So it's finding a match that fires on all cylinders tends to be difficult. So we're much more of the build side of the line. So where are you?
Oh my goodness! So we're in here to offer kind of that point counterpoint thing. Remember the Jane Curtin and all right. So we're the little guy growing pretty fast. And if I had $1 for every time the word autism was said today, right? It would, but I would have made my quota just today. But it's a mission for this very small company from outside of Cleveland, Ohio, to be playing and walking the walk as if we were one of the big boys. So we've approached the marketplace. We've got a foundation that's funded us, and we've rapidly developed the products mostly by building. I know, it's the point, that's the counterpoint to the point here, right? So we've looked at a lot of different instances. We've done some partnering and acquisition of some modules and also services, and I'll talk about that as we go through questions and so forth. But when it came to our core product and the development of what it is that we're out there doing, we're building it. We're developing the expertise. We've got a really small but wiry development team that never sleep, and just, you know, they survive on Starbucks, I think. But these guys are just kind of always walking around the office very bleary-eyed, and they're putting out updates, major updates every quarter, and really changing and growing this little solution. And we're growing since I've been part of the company in 2010. I think we've grown about 400%. So. Which is great when you start off at nothing, so you can't say. But so I guess I come to the table today to talk a little bit about, from the smaller company's perspective, the types of companies that we're looking to partner with, and the types of elements or services that we're looking to purchase or lease, which is another option, not necessarily in terms of buying. We're certainly not in the acquisition side of the house. We are, so we're definitely the counterpoint to some of the things that have been said.
Thank you for those introductory comments, the three of you. If you do have questions, just add those numbers up. It's 513-519-1440. Text me your questions. I was going to ask Midian, I liked really how you characterized some of the decisions you're making, that you needed those four elements, and when they're all together, that's the best scenario, and when everything fits well. But you didn't talk about the element of time. That if your product team has said we need this or we want to have that, or your management team has said we need to grow at this level and there's a short runway. I mean, how do you play time into the decision when you're thinking about whether or not I go out and get something that's already done, and some of the problems that relate to that which you mentioned, versus building it internally and not getting speech recognition for 8 years?
Sure. And this is an area that I think that's finally changing. It used to be, it takes a long time to develop it, but it takes an awful long time to buy it and then have to integrate it and integrate your engineering teams and your J2EE and your .NET. And it was always, the things that looked like they would be fast ended up taking just as long, or if not longer, than if you just built it yourself and had all that extra overhead associated with it. As we're getting into an era where we're finally beginning to see positive results from technical standards, and you've got things like LTI and QTI and metadata standards, and you've got HTML5 sorting itself out, and the web is relatively stable these days. The ability to find products or technologies or components that have been built in more cases than not recently from the get-go to be integrated with other people. And that includes everything from single sign-on and authentication to back-end data systems, is changing the weight a little bit more back in favor of buying is becoming a more thinkable thought, because it really will speed things up, and it won't carry necessarily that ongoing support burden that it otherwise might have. So
more efficient technologies linking together, ways to tie them together without having to rebuild entirely.
And exactly, and at least again, as a fairly large company, we will give a lot of lip service to we need this quickly, we need to do this fast, but let's face it, we move in a very slow-moving market, and we can afford to take the time to build it ourselves to do it right. So unlike a lot of, particularly on the consumer side, where you miss a year, you miss Christmas, you're dead, the U.S. education market is pretty forgiving. You know, once in a while you have those drop-dead Florida adoption kind of deadlines, but other than that, time is not the major
Yeah, so what's interesting is the question, your answer is really time is time either way, right? But what you were saying is the technology piece, which, and maybe one of you want to reflect on that. The technology piece is allowing, perhaps you're saying, the pendulum to swing back more towards the buy, because it makes it easier to deal with non-conforming technologies and things like that. Like, I heard you right. Yeah. Chris, any comments on that?
Yes. I think that.
Well, thank you for that. That's good.
Joyce?
For 1,000 years in product development, anybody here who's been in product development has drawn that triangle on the board where, you guys everybody know what I'm talking about? And on one corner of the it's not a corner. One point of the triangle, I used to be in math, one point of the triangle is money, one is time, and one is quality. And you used to say to your team, you could only get 2, you can never get all 3. That those constraints pull on each other. And you have to understand clearly where your constraint is in the marketplace. I'm thrilled to hear that Scholastic feels they have plenty of time to do whatever they want for as long as is necessary.
30 years.
That's the problem of the recording.
McGraw-Hill is supporting a huge legacy business. Please come in. Oh, look, it's McGraw-Hill people.
Zoinks.
I think McGraw-Hill, who is described as the Goliath in one of the previous sessions, but is also one of those historic legacy businesses of the ugly word textbook, that I don't think we at McGraw-Hill feel the luxury of time. I think we're under a tremendous pressure to create McGraw-Hill 2.0. We want to do that in terms of platform, in terms of program and product and apps, but also in terms of our portfolio and what we need to do to be the leader we believe we are in education worldwide and in reimagining learning. So I think any acquisition, any partnership, we're laying that against that lens of money, quality, and time. There's a lot of fascinating things that happen when solutions surface from small startups. They have tremendous passion around a particular subject area or a particular problem to solve in the market. Hopefully they are solving a problem in the market or they're not going to be here, right? But they bring such a passion to that often the kind of quality that they can bring is hard when from the large company, because we have resource constraints that a lot of smaller companies, they just keep throwing resource at it till they get it right. So there's all those variables to weigh. I do want to emphasize, though, one point that Midian made. Never underestimate the cost, time, and energy that goes into integration. It's very easy to get the acquiring company gets a gleam in their eye that this is going to be simple, it's going to be easy, it's ready to jump in. And it's often much more complex than that. And I would add one more variable too. I think in today's market, where web development, SaaS development, app development are going on at a wicked pace, that it's also very exciting to acquire great people. You heard that mentioned a number of times this morning in the sessions with the VCs and the private equity firms. They're looking for a great management team. McGraw-Hill is too, because we want great and talented people to join the fold and accelerate and escalate who we are and who we're becoming as McGraw-Hill 2.0.
And that does have integration costs as well.
Absolutely,
people
never
piece.
underestimate the people piece. That's why my
Yeah.
opening remarks about
Yeah.
The foundation of who you are as people and whether you can make that gel. If you know, can you play by the rules that are the acquiring company? If not, it's going to be a bad marriage.
Joyce, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, from the small startup and growing company perspective, I almost have to like look at Midian's comments about time doesn't really matter and it's just gonna, it's okay, it's good, it's groovy. I'm gonna keep him back to this point counterpoint thing and say, really? Because at our company, it's kind of emblazoned. We all have these little tattoos that say you've got to run like you've got the wolves chasing you. Right, that's the pace at which we go. That's why my developers walk around with, bleary-eyed. That's why my reps are flying. I've got this one guy who does like 7-hour trips out in the Midwest, and he's just like road warrior. Why? Because we're running like we've got wolves chasing after us. Because it's really a matter of generating revenue, increasing our market share at the same time we're building our pipeline and building our product line. Right, and so a couple of years ago, it came to the table that God, we have to have some element in here that we're missing, which is reading, just to mention a word. And I cringed because I've sold reading products. I told my children years ago, I said, if mommy ever starts to work for another reading company, just lock me in the closet with no internet, and that will be fine, because then I won't be a crazy woman. Because you don't want to have to bring another product to the reading wars, with the reading queens that are out there, and begin to battle that out. And so this is on our development table. Somebody comes up and says, I've got a great idea of how we can integrate the visual learning supports for students with autism for reading. We're going to do phonics and literacy and fluency and all the 5 core elements, and I just cringed and I said, no way. So what do? We went out and we outsourced it. We bought code. We gave them the parameters, we told them what we wanted, and we outsourced this. And Midian, can you just guess? Bomb crash. I mean, just so we still have this one little template in our portfolio of tools that still says beta on it. We barely, I pretty much I have it on out there, and it's one of those lessons learned. Because we got it back, it had issues, we need to go back on in and rewrite a whole bunch of that code, and guess what, there's no documentation in that code. We had no clue where any of it came from. And our guys spent more money on Starbucks and stayed up all night, figured it out. And yeah, it does kind of work and so forth, but it's just not something that, if with a magic wand, I would go back with some extra dollars and say, okay, if you really feel this is absolutely essential and totally core to business, then you're going to bring on some more staff and you're going to ramp up and you're going to build it right here in-house and not farm this puppy on out. So time, quality, cost, the triangle, yes, we live that and we breathe that, and yet the time part of it to us is really something that we feel the pressure because we are working off of investors' dollars, and we do have to be really responsive to them, and we are accountable to them. And so we've got to have a return on the investment, and that cost is really high for us. So
I've got a question from the group, and if you can, for the sake of time, let's try and keep our answers shorter than the last 3. The question centers that I'm going to choose here centers around culture. I think it's an interesting thing to bring up. Maybe it's another point on some form of a triangle. But the question is for better or for worse, when you're buying a company, has an effect on your culture. What's your experience been with that? Has it been for better or for worse when you pick up a firm? It's a question. My guess has probably been both at different times.
You want to go first? I gone
first. Sure. We have a great culture, and we think the companies we buy should adopt it. So,
enough said. After all, your culture's in your carpet.
That's right. That's right. Anybody's been in the business, all you got to do is read the carpet.
I've got a short answer. We haven't acquired any companies.
There you go.
Well, Midian, do you want to talk about Thompson Reuters?
No.
We'd like you to.
Yeah, we have a checkered history here, as I think all of talk of we have any Pearson folks here. It's It's very hard, and then it's particularly one of the odd things about Scholastic is it's this 90-year-old company. It's all in one location. It's not spread all over the country. It's all here in New York City in a one-block area. And when we do buy a company like Mass Solutions out in California or Tom Snyder up in Boston, the distance, even in this day and age of video conferencing and airplanes, you can attest to this, makes a huge difference. We are a face-to-face, meeting-driven company here in New York, and it creates a huge burden on, and it's part of the integration costs and why we're somewhat hesitant about doing many acquisitions. It's how can we impart our culture on the new company, and how can we embrace what's best about the company that we've decided to buy. So
honestly,
it's a challenge.
In some ways, you probably can't impart your culture, and therefore you collect your IP and you collect your assets and put your own people on the job. Because
when you pay a premium, though, for all of that stuff that you then know you won't be able to preserve,
fully,
it makes the
You have to
financials.
You have to watch how you actually build the model, because there's an expectation that you are not going to be able to hold on to that said group of people. There are serial killers and there are serial entrepreneurs, and serial entrepreneurs are not necessarily going to be happy in a large corporate structure, no matter what you do to adjust your culture.
Sorry.
And yes, that would be true. Anyway.
Someone's going to kill somebody.
So I think recognizing that is really important. It starts with understanding some of the issues and the challenges. I think that the cycle I've seen, and I haven't been at McGraw-Hill that long, but I have been acquired. I've been a part of potential acquisitions, et cetera. But what happens with the company that has been acquired, I can see it right now going on. We have a brand new acquisition of Alex. All credit to Think Through Math. I see Kevin in the back of the room. Alex is fabulous. And but of course, they're feeling a fire hose effect from their partnership now owner in McGraw-Hill. They're a wonderful company with a rich culture, and we're trying to do our best to keep them contained in a way that still we can still drive the product roadmap, but not overpower them. Very difficult balance. Because what I also see happening in any acquisition, that in the heady days of signing the paperwork, everybody gets a big paycheck. And that's sort of like being at the marriage, and that you have the wedding reception and you think it's all sunshine and lollipops forever. But within about 6 months, the honeymoon is over, and there's an expectation from the mothership for ROI, for EBITDA, for cash flow, the big business expectations that may have been there in subtler forms in a smaller company come home to roost big time. And I think that's when the acquired company goes through sort of a form of identity crisis.
Yeah, the acquired company.
The acquired company.
Yeah, so it seems...
I'm smiling at Karen because we acquired her company.
And I'm smiling at you.
Yes, and we're buddies. But we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because we knew the kind of small company culture that was key curriculum, Sketchpad in particular. And we've made it through. We're doing what we wanted to do intentionally with Sketchpad, but it is a challenge in that marriage. And at the same time, you want to go in, if you're a small entrepreneur here in the company, with your eyes open about what you value and see what fits.
It seems to the person who asked this next question that innovation in larger, more staid companies, innovation is hard to get from the inside, and it's easier to bring it in from the outside. Do you feel like that's part of the pendulum swing or do you agree with that statement, that there's a lot that you can use outside acquisition for licensing or purchase to get more innovation inside your organization?
Yes.
Trying to be pretty-
Thanks for the brevity.
Well, no.
Context is also good.
So we need a tiebreaker. Yes or no?
Are you going to give your point of comment? We got a yes and a no. Oh, and I get to be the
You get a vote,
tiebreaker.
There you
then
have
I
it.
can-
So I would say that, yeah, innovation for us is something that we're kind of coming up with on our own, right? We're doing a lot of pieces. We see things that are out there, and yet we've actually even looked, like there were certain functionality and things that we wanted to acquire and to bring on in, but it didn't really match our overall product development vision and product map. And we were not just strictly an HTML solution. We were on multiple platforms, and we were in a lot of different ways. And things that we wanted to acquire didn't technically fit, so we're off, kind of building it and trying to figure it out from that perspective.
So kind of a drawn innovation thing. But look,
I would just say, as in whether you're McGraw or Scholastic, we do have the luxury of we see everything. So it's not a lack of exposure to innovation and a lot of good ideas, but it's constantly taking the long view. Okay, is this fundamental? Is this sustainable?
yeah.
Or if somebody comes with some really innovative thing, it might even be a product to them, but to us it's a feature.
Right.
And they want a lot of money. And we're saying, well, if we put that innovative feature into one of our products or several, could we raise the price of that product by $1?
Yeah.
So there's a conundrum there. And there's so much cool stuff we do see and we pass on because it can be, it's either feels too faddish,
Yeah.
or it's something we're working on anyway, or it's too expensive because particularly something that, yeah, it'd be cool to have, but it's not going to get us adopted or,
It's not essential.
or purchased.
Right. Yeah.
So it comes down to a sales value question.
We have just time for maybe another 1.5 kind of questions here. So let me start with a half. And then both of these next two questions from the audience relate to partnering. Partnering with someone versus building it internally. And the question for you, Chris, is did the acquisition of Alex come easier or more efficiently because of the long partnership that had been there?
I think it made the acquisition easier.
Yeah.
Not easy, but easier. Acquisitions are never easy, but easier because there was already a long relationship of trust and understanding deeply the product that we were acquiring, and the kind of transparency on revenues. We had all of our higher ed reps out there selling and talking about Alex, so it was no surprise in the marketplace to come into.
And you didn't have to crank up your distribution channel.
Right. The big change has been the swing to K-12 for Alex, where there was no sales relationship with Alex in the past. So that's why we are the fire hose more than higher ed is.
So the next, and probably based on time, unless we can sneak another one in, last question related to partnering is from the group is, do you find that you know the problem you're trying to solve for, and this is for any of you three to start with, do you know that does your organization know the problem you're solving for already, and you go out seeking a partner, or do people bring you partner opportunities and you look at it and go, holy cow, that'd be great for us, we'd like to move forward with a partnership there? I mean, is it are you looking, or are you finding, or are you discovering things when people come to you?
I'll start because we've been out doing a lot of biz dev, and for a while it felt like we were just meeting one after another, kind of like having just too many first dates. And there's just a lot of great places that you could start, but how many of them are really core to your focus? And obviously we've already spoken about the fact that we ended up kind of doing a lot of our own innovation, a lot of our own development. So there were some places where we had to give. So we found a really great place to partner was in giving up components of things like our Q&A testing and so forth, and partnering with people along that line. And I would love to do a little mini plug for a company out of Chicago called Spiritech. If you want any information, you can check with me. But they use individuals with autism. There's another dollar in the jar. They use individuals with autism to do Q&A testing. High tech, people who can sit down and do repetitive testing on your product, and it's pretty cool. Kind of, it's a non-for-profit, and they did a great job with our last launch over the summer, quick, efficient, and so things like that. That's a win-win for us in terms of finding a partner that really fit a need, so we could go off and do what we needed to do.
Yeah, you went looking in that case.
Right, we went looking
Yeah.
for this, and we had heard about a couple places, one that was in Switzerland and one that was in Canada, and we found one homegrown right in Chicago.
Very
And
good.
we want to grow, so they want to be talked about.
You too? People finding you or you finding them, Ish?
There's another element of Firehose, and that is that, just like Midian said a few minutes ago, we tend to see everything. So in order for us to have focus, we do target what we really want to zone in on based on our strategic plan. Part of that strategic plan is obviously tied to an assessment of our portfolio, our strengths and our weaknesses, where we're going to be spending money anyway, and if we can spend it differently or more effectively through partnership or through acquisition, we're going to be looking at that. So while there are things that might pop up as a bit of a surprise, it's really much, McGraw-Hill is the third of the big three. We can't afford to have lots of failures. So we're going to base our focus on a strategic plan and then seek out accordingly, for the most part.
Yeah.
But I want to add one more filter to that, which is you can have the best strategic plan in the world, but the exact match of company, like all the attributes that Midian was talking about a minute ago, so rarely happens. So there's elements of compromise that go into that structure and how those things fit together. But does the benefit outweigh the negative? And it's a lot of nuance in this. It's not like I have a scientific formula that we can post up here on the board for you to equate and then know I'm the perfect partner from McGraw-Hill. But we're not obviously going to share that strategic plan and portfolio plan broadly because we're in a competitive market, but we are going to focus our efforts that way.
Yeah. Anything? Quickly, please.
I can say quickly, as the fourth of the big three, we're...
Oh, I love knew that was coming.
That's true.
That's true. The two quick points around partnership. One of the things that's true about our market is when you bring a product to market, it lasts a long, long time. Read 180 will be 15 years old pretty soon. If you're going to partner around a key product, or it's going to be, the partnership is core to the existence of a line of business, the fact that it's not just this season or next season we can partner with somebody different. In our market, let's face it, it's forever. You get hit with one of those, you're so lucky to win the California or the Florida adoption, and you're joined with this partner for a minimum of 6 years. So that's just a reality of the market we're in. But and in addition, when we look to partners, also the desire for exclusivity or not having the same component and capability that everybody else has is always there and makes things difficult. And that, when we find a wonderful group that have a great product and we want them to port their development and do something different for us, and then they can keep on their other branch, but then you try to keep that up for 6 years. So it's challenging when you look beyond, oh, that is so cool, I wish we had it,
Yeah.
but how's that going to play out over time?
Very good. Thank you all. If you would please show your appreciation for Midian and Chris and Joyce. And thank you all for participating with your questions. They were fantastic. And thanks for spending an hour with us. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. Nice
Thanks,
job.
Christine.
Nice job.
Nicely done for
No
you.
problem.
Yeah, don't you love
Yay,
that?
no problem.
Thank you all for doing that. The thing, you can't summarize this and say that, it's very difficult. And it's nuanced. I love that word. So thank you. Remember, if we are going to have some chats, let's do it over here.
Right.
Yes, I do also.
Next, go.
Hey Randy, I'm Edie Perkins. How are you? Yeah, nice to see you. Yeah, thanks for here. That was a great session. That was great.